Welcome to the debate. Just a quick note, the link to the source material we are discussing today is provided in the video description. Today, we are diving into a proposal that is, well, so radical and yet so profoundly practical that it really demands immediate consideration. We're talking about the complete and permanent relocation of the Christmas celebration, moving the entire festival, out of the dark, viral confines of December and into the sun-drenched, energetically abundant splendor of June.
And I have to say, this proposal, while it's certainly generating a lot of discussion, it feels to me like a bit of an overzealous attempt to solve a seasonal problem with a chronological sledgehammer.
Well, the central question before us is this. Do the severe public health risks, the profound energetic absurdity, and frankly, the sheer physical discomfort of a winter festival mean that Christmas, for the sake of efficiency and modernity, must be transformed into a sun festival celebrated around the summer solstice?
And I'll be making the case that while, yes, the pragmatic challenges of December are real, they are nowhere near sufficient justification for discarding centuries of seasonal ritual. The cost of this cultural upheaval, I think, far outweighs the measurable benefits of solar power and wearing shorts.
And I will be advocating for this necessary holiday revolution, presenting what I see as overwhelming evidence that a June celebration is just a superior model for public health, human comfort, and, meeting our collective climate goals. So let's just begin with the functional obsolescence of the current December schedule. Christmas as it's currently practiced is, I would argue, actively detrimental to both our well-being and the stability of our power grids. And we don't need theoretical models for this. We can just look at the Southern Hemisphere to see the vastly superior, sustainable alternative that June provides.
Right. But that assumes the Southern Hemisphere model is culturally transferable, which is a point I deeply question.
The energy data alone should force a change. December is frankly energetically insane. We are talking about millions upon millions of holiday string lights, a sort of blinking constellation that puts an immense strain on our power grids. And it does this precisely when our solar photovoltaic capacity is at its lowest point of the year. The sun's output in December is negligible. So you have this fundamental aggressive conflict between our ritual and our energy transition. We are intentionally engineering a demand spike during the month of minimum supply, all for the sake of a shivering ritual.
Okay, I do acknowledge the seasonal energy spike from heating and lights. But the scale of that drain, it has to be put into context.
The context is that the energy demands are compounded by a lack of basic human comfort. A winter festival forces everyone into layers of heavy, restrictive clothing. We're trying to be festive while, enduring physical misery. We're huddled indoors or crammed around these incredibly inefficient outdoor heating units. A June shift, on the other hand, it guarantees that everyone is comfortable, both physically and emotionally, without relying on this massive thermal energy input. The physical struggle of December, it isn't tradition, it's just an avoidable logistical failure.
I see the appeal, I do. The appeal of maximizing comfort and streamlining logistics. However, the premise that the holiday is merely an exercise in efficiency and energy stability, well, it reduces its meaning to little more than a quarterly report. So while I respect the arguments for sustainability and warmth, I just don't believe these reasons are sufficient to discard centuries of deeply rooted seasonal ritual.
But if the ritual actively works against the health of the population and the future of the planet, then surely its time is up?
My core challenge is whether you can simply translate the deep, almost primal emotional weight of December into a summer setting. The source material talks about summer mulled wine and gingerbread on the patio. Does that truly capture the essential atmosphere? The warmth of a gathering, the glow of lights, that cozy feeling. All of these things rely on the sharp contrast with the freezing, dark environment outside. You strip away the cold, you strip away the meaning of the hearth.
A hearth that, in December, is achieved by fighting the elements with an obscene amount of wasted energy. We're trading efficiency for atmosphere.
And that leads me directly to the heart of the matter. I challenge the assumption that maximizing energy efficiency or, ensuring the holiday dinner is cooked solely with solar power should be the overarching imperative that trumps all other cultural considerations. The current energy consumption, while high, is an accepted, singular annual expenditure for a ritual of profound cultural value. We accept high energy use for other major events, massive summer concerts, for instance. Why is the efficiency of this one holiday the sole factor in its survival?
Because the inefficiency is tied directly to public health risks that are entirely preventable. So let's move into that domain, the conflict between public health and what you're calling communal resilience. We really need to talk about the severity of the December contagion risk.
We're talking about the winter flu season. That's an acknowledged fact of life.
No, we're talking about winter markets that are, epidemiologically speaking, high-risk environments. The setting, people crammed shoulder to shoulder in crowded spaces, huddled around gas heaters, sharing these concentrated plumes of warm, moist air, it is perfectly designed for aerosol transmission. It fosters everything from the common cold to influenza, the so-called glühwein bacille. The cold air compromises the respiratory system, and the dense crowds just maximize contact.
I acknowledge that winter gatherings carry a risk, but
But I have to ask if we are now demanding medical-grade sterile safety for all communal festivals. The density, the proximity, the shared warmth, those are inherent, essential elements of the market experience. They create that unique feeling of community.
And an essential element of contagion.
The solution isn't to move the holiday halfway around the calendar and replace it with a t-shirt barbecue. It's to promote better public health measures, maybe moderate crowding when necessary. To frame the traditional winter gathering as some kind of fear-inducing vector of disease is, I believe, an overreaction to a perennial risk that society manages every year.
I see why you want to minimize the risk, I do. But your perspective fails to account for the cumulative strain. When the immune system is already stressed by cold and dark, and when society is actively trying to meet ambitious energy goals, continuing this tradition of mass congregation in the cold becomes an act of societal negligence. It's an expensive, self-inflicted medical hazard. If we can solve this problem, mitigate the energy strain and the contagion by leveraging the sun in June, why wouldn't we?
Because the disruption you're proposing introduces a different, profound cost, the loss of meaning. And that shifts us directly into the heart of the disagreement over efficiency versus tradition.
The numbers just make the case for efficiency unavoidable.
Your proposal hinges on maximizing solar power. You're arguing that the moral imperative here is simply guilt-free lighting and unlimited electricity. But should the primary goal of Christmas really be to maximize renewable energy output? I would argue that the scarcity of light in December is precisely what makes the light we do use, the candles, the focused interior glow, more meaningful, more contemplative. It provides a contrast that grounds the entire holiday.
That's an interesting philosophical point, though I would frame it very differently in terms of climate responsibility. We have the technologically abundant solar capacity in June and the evidence of reoccurring public health crises to recognize the absurdity of the old tradition. Moving the holiday is necessary for the integrity of our national renewable shift. We simply cannot afford to treat this massive, recurring winter energy draw as an acceptable annual write-off. Using solar energy to meet our festive energy hunger without the damage or cost is not just a practical benefit, it is a societal necessity.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. If the entire existence of a millennia-old cultural tradition hinges entirely on whether solar panels are currently efficient, if the ritual is secondary to optimizing the national grid, then aren't we admitting that the tradition itself is hollow? That it lacks any inherent value beyond its economic cost? You're making the cultural centerpiece of the year subordinate to energy calculations.
I'm making it compatible with a sustainable future. And that sustainability brings its own form of joyous liberation, which is critical to our final point, emotional freedom and the summer festival.
And here we get to the aesthetics of a summer party versus the contemplative depth of winter.
We have to acknowledge the positive emotional and physical benefits of June. Imagine the freedom of truly celebrating, of singing holiday songs outdoors in a t-shirt. That's a palpable physical gain that eliminates the suffering of the December cold. We see it with the Australians, the South Americans. They show us how it's done successfully, celebrating with shorts, sun, and cold treats instead of heavy clothing and heavy meals. This isn't just comfort, it's joyous physical liberation.
That's a compelling argument for maximizing physical comfort, certainly. But have you considered that the contrast between the cold outside and the essential warmth inside is fundamental to the holiday spirit? That deep feeling of coziness that people cherish is born out of necessity. We seek the light, the warmth, the gathering because it is cold and dark outside. But if the atmosphere is dependent on misery, what exactly are we celebrating? The triumph over a cold we forced ourselves to endure?
You lose the atmosphere. A summer celebration, while physically comfortable, inevitably loses that unique, introspective atmosphere. I would argue a summer replacement is just a different, less atmospheric festival. It's a pleasant summer gathering, yes, but it's stripped of the powerful, defining cultural weight of seasonal darkness and the anticipation of light. The inherent struggle of December is what makes the communal light shine brighter.
That struggle, as you call it, is simply unnecessary frostbite risks, high viral transmission, and excessive fossil fuel consumption. We've moved past the need to make life difficult merely to feel a sense of contrast.
I view it as defining the experiences and the continuity of the calendar. Then I must reiterate that the movement of Christmas to June is an inevitable and necessary adjustment. It's a turning point driven by compelling practical arguments about public health, environmental responsibility, and simple human comfort. The December model is fundamentally flawed, it is economically ruinous, and it must be retired in favor of a festival of the sun. The data and the logic of efficiency are on our side.
And I maintain that while the December experience presents acknowledged challenges, cold, energy demands, viral risk, your proposal has failed to demonstrate that the pragmatic benefits of solar power and reduced contagion justify the complete, disruptive abandonment of seasonal tradition. The current system, while imperfect, holds an irreplaceable cultural weight that cannot simply be moved for a better energy reading.
So it appears we are left to weigh the complexity of balancing immediate, measurable, practical efficiency and health concerns against the powerful inertia and, well, the perceived cultural value of a cold weather tradition.
A fascinating complexity indeed, leaving us all to decide if comfort and efficiency should ultimately dictate the timing of our most cherished rituals.
Thank you for joining us for this spirited debate on the future of one of the world's largest annual celebrations.
Thank you.
We encourage you to explore the original source material and form your own conclusion on the merits of this holiday revolution. Until next time.